How long we got till we go live?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Performance Link GT3 Cup, round number 7 here at the SUZUKA track. After the debacle of last week's escapades, we hopefully have sorted it out now, so we'll have a race for you, wonderful viewers, tonight here around what is an excellent track here in SUZUKA. Add on to that the latest updates from the iRacing server for the new tyre simulations. It's going to make an interesting race for sure. My name's Andy Thompson. I'm joined forever by Dave Whitehouse. Don't worry if he's a bit subdued tonight. He has literally just come off a 23-hour endurance race, so big up for Dave for doing that for the charity Mind. But Dave, welcome to the box, mate, and are you looking forward to this one?
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to this one. SUZUKA just brings something out in every motorsport fan. It's a challenging circuit, and like you say, even after being 1 hour's sleep in the last 48, I'm still really looking forward to this event, and it'll be great to see how the drivers get on after not really having a race last week, not competitively anyway, and just that extra little break to sort of try and sort themselves out. And then the big BOP update on the GT3 cars in iRacing has obviously caused a lot of scratching of heads.
Yeah, you may see a few of our drivers in different cars. We've given the option for our drivers to change cars if that's what we're all about in this league, a bit of giving back. But let's have a look around from a driver's point of view of this Suzuka track. So this is obviously being kindly donated by Thomas Cope, one of our pro drivers in this series from Olympus Esports. So we'll be following a lap of Thomas around this Suzuka track. Very treacherous track, really, and it's all about throttle management. This track is we just about to get into it. So we watch Thomas here coming around the last corner, down the long straight, just literally get it up through the gears as much as he can. Coming down into turn number 1, literally you dive. It's a double left-hand corner, sorry, double right-hand corner. You literally dive into this corner and then slowly get on the brake down into third gear and just feather it around turn number 2 before you start going up through the snake or the S curves, as some people call it. Literally, just as you can see the throttle in the bottom right-hand corner, literally feathering the throttle coming up through these curves. Very treacherous, and I'm expecting to see quite a few drivers maybe getting into a little bit of trouble before we got this very fast left-hander here at Dunlop. You just see as you're going into the entry of that curve, you just hold back the throttle slightly before you come down into the Degners. Very tricky part of the corner, the second corner here. Literally got to come down using all the curb and the grass on the exit here. Coming up to the hairpin now. Literally, as you come around this right-hand corner, you literally stamp on the brakes here, as we see there in the bottom right, to get down to the first gear to try and get the apex around the hairpin. Then coming down, and the track obviously changes then to a clockwise position or an anti-clockwise position, coming down to 200R, coming down into another tricky part of the track, spoons, a double left-hander. Really watch the throttle and the braking coming around here, literally feathering it around, trying, just waiting, biding your time to get that maximum speed to be able to get the maximum amount of speed coming down this long straight. Then we got what I'm expecting to be probably the treacherous part of the circuit for many of the drivers, the 130R. It's with this new tyre setup, it's going to be interesting. Literally, you want to avoid that curb on the right hand side we've seen there, because if you hit that with your outside or inside tyres, then you basically will be hitting the wall on the inside. Before we head into the Casio triangle, very tricky top, but I expect to see some optimistic overtakes coming through there, and that is a lap there of the Suzuka circuit by Thomas. It's going to be an interesting one, that is for sure. The parts of the circuit, I think, Dave, are going to be the hot spots. Are certainly going to be spoons, the 130R, and coming up to the hairpin. I think they're the 3 parts of the track that I think we're going to see the most action here tonight.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and it's always a little bit optimistic. Suzuka known as a track which is tough to overtake in, and when you think about it, you know, you go back to the drivers that managed to go to Formula Nippon before they went to Formula 1. They knew their way around this like the back of their hand, knew where to overtake around the outside, and then more recently Kamui Kobayashi making overtakes in places you just didn't expect. And that's how you have to do it around this circuit. You have to get the drivers bit by surprise to guys in front. But as you may have just noticed, we do have some new images for some of the drivers, which was looked at, I think, during my my charity run earlier on. Here's Scott Mokes, and yeah, I mean, it does kind of
resemblance. Yeah, definitely
good resemblance. And I think Thomas Cope is another one with a caricature of himself, as we now look at Alex Garrett coming through in the Audi. So that's a change of car for Alex, I think.
Yes, it certainly is. A lot more Audis coming into there, and certainly the Lamborghinis seem to be back in favour. The Porsche seems to be gone out of favour with quite a few of the drivers. But before we do that, let's have a look at the point standings as we go into the second half of this season here. Let's just wait till they come up, and here's the pros. So currently led by Scott Mokes on 105 points, followed closely by Thomas Cope on 98, Aaron Powell on 96, with Arias Germantas equaling that as well. Matty Chambers on 93, Kim-Andre Borkland on 85, Jacob Behrens on 74, Elliot Hillier on 66, Nikolai Frayne on 66, and Dean Powell heading out the top 10 on 62 points. As we head over to the Pro-Ams, Michael Hooper at the top of this at the moment, 128 points. Little slender lead there over Patrick Thompson in second place, 117. Casper Stanton in third place on 101. Russ Fowler, 92. James Logden on 89. Alexander Scarrett on 82. Tom Bingham, 81. Max Wolf on 50. Tom Stevens, 48. And Hackard Jolston on 46. As we move over to the AM field now, it is being headed by Sander Island. It's been an ever-changing one, this one, between Sander and Steve Pearce. So Sander currently leading on 122 points with a slender lead over Steve Pearce on 117. David Gill there on 103. Gordon Haig on 102. Joe Sowler on 87. Simeon Modeklev on 84. Jimmy Vark 78 with Darren Doherty. Mad Sayer on 70 and Daniel Lilivek on 56. And then we go up to the ever-depleting rookie, but certainly a competitive field in itself. Paul Joseph Clist currently heads out that with 119 points, followed closely by Matthew Jarrod on 112, Lydia Rosser in third place on 104, Lewis McEvely on 99, and Victor Lind on 89. So very competitive field, that rookie class, but there's quite a few of the classes, Dave, that are extremely close. As we look at the championship team standings, Sim Norway currently a slender lead, 315 points over Team Bear Pope on 313, so only 2 points difference there. Bit of a gap then back to our very own Performance Link esports team on 272, followed by Reckless Abandon 10 points behind in fourth place. Evo SO, after their strong starts, have missed a few rounds, so set there back in fifth place on 254. Then we've got the GT Akamane and 212, Project Racing 205, Nordic Racing on 198, Olympus Esports on 191, and IGL Coatings round out your top 10 on 186. So still all to play for, Dave, in the championship through all the classes and the team championship.
Yeah, exactly. And like I always say with a football match, you get to half time and the other team can go and score exactly the same amount of goals as you scored in the first half in the same goal. Yes, the circuit changes, but we still have 6 rounds. We still have a similar kind of format. So it's not like the drivers can't pull this back if they've had a bad start to the season. But we do have those championship contenders now that we can officially say you are the guys who we think might fight for the title, as we now look at Daniel Slater. Going through the aptly named first curve, wonder where they got that one from as he comes up into the S's, and he's in the BMW, the driver from Denmark for Nordic Racing. Showing good speed this season so far, Daniel Slater, as he seems to disappear from the circuit, because it looks like we will be heading to the grid.
Yeah, we certainly will. It is an hour-long race here tonight. We've changed the format. There's no longer any 30-minute races, all down to hour-long races. So heading out on pole position is Thomas Cope, followed by Aaron Powell on the front row. On the second row, we got Scott Mokes, Kim-Andre Borkland. In fifth, we got Aria Shimantas, followed by Nikolai Frayne. Then we move over to the Pro-Ams. Alexander Scarrett heading out your pole position in the Pro-Ams, followed by James Logden, Michael Hoopler in 9th place, Michael Cody in 10th, Patrick Thompson in 11th, with Casper Tunstall in 12th.
In 13th, we have Russ Fowler and Christoph Otterholt in 14th, Christopher Bertrans in 15th, and Tom Bingham rounding out that row in 16th. Kev Copeland and Bob Humphrey and Tom Stevens round out the Pro-Ams. Into the Ams, David Gill takes pole position for Sander Island. Thomas Ashford, on his official debut, moves up into third on the grid from Nigel Stock in that Ford GT, looking quite good here today, and ahead of Gordon Howell.
In 25th position, we've got Steve Pearce, followed by Jimmy Vark, Matt Strand, Simeon Modeklev, Nicola Gronstrom, David Slater, Ovid Bredvik, Hendrik Harrison, Eric Rossef, and Matthew Gerard heads out the pole position in the rookies, followed by Lewis McEvey, Paul Joseph Klist, Lydia Rosser, and Victor Lund. But we're just starting off, so there will be around about a 5-second gap between each of the classes to get a nice clean start. But we're just going to have a look at the pros. Thomas on the left there leading out, and Aaron Powell on the right from Evo SR as they come around here, the final corner, to get this 1 hour race underway here, as we've only got a smaller field of only 6 pro drivers. But I'm pretty sure the action will still be as frenetic as it always is, as Thomas gets a really good start. Scott Mokes is looking to challenge Aaron Powell coming down into the first corner. Thinks better of it, tucks up nicely, so Aaron Powell still keeps that second place. Scott Mokes in third, Kinal J. Borkland in fourth. So all the pro fields pretty much staying where they are. As we look back at the pro am field, Alexander Scrett managing to get that lead over Krista Otterholt and James Logden having a little bit of a battle there around the second corner. James just managing to keep that second position. As we look further back to the Amfield, Hendrik Harrison is currently out in front there, with David Gill currently in second. Oh, as we have a lot of incidents there in the pro Amfield, it looks like. Oh, and looks like Jamantis as well has been involved in an incident. You see him piling down the timing tower there. So a bit of an incident at the start of this track between the pro-am fields. Maybe it started from the pros at the front there. We saw Arish Mantis just piling down into P19. So that could have been the catalyst to the start of what happened there in the pro. But I'm pretty sure that we will get a replay of what quite happened there. But looking further back then at the AM Simeon Motorclev in P28. But looking back at the rookie class, Matthew Gerard has managed to keep that pole position where he was. Lewis McEvely in second place, Paul Joseph Kliss in third, Lydia Rosser in fourth, and Victor Lind in fifth. So it's going to be a hotly contested, as you see cars just sprayed out all through, going up through the snake. I mean, we haven't really talked about it, Dave, but the new tyre model on this makes laps 1 absolutely treacherous in these cars.
Yeah, I can even vouch for that, as Aaron Powell comes around to lead lap number 1. He's managed to get ahead of Tom Cope earlier in the lap. I can vouch for that with the Mazda MX-5 I've been driving for the last 23 hours this weekend. The tyres were so cold for the opening 2-3 laps, and Thomas Cope goes for the lead down into the first corner and makes a clean overtake. I do think off that start there's a bit of a jump in the pack from possibly the second or third row of the Pro-Ams, and for some reason Hendrik Harrison is well clear of anybody else in the AM category. So we might have to go back and look at that later on, or the stewards will, because it doesn't seem to quite add up there, but we'll find out at a later point. But at this moment, it's Thomas Cope who's retaking the lead as he comes through Degner 1 and 2, ahead of the Lamborghini of Aaron Powell. Aaron, I think, was in the Porsche earlier in the season, so he has jumped into the Lamborghini. From what we're hearing of the box recently, it's a lot to do with the Lambo and the Audi, which will be interesting because not a lot of people own the Audi. So iRacing may be drumming up some support there for the Audi. But like you say about the tyre model, it's very cold tyres. It's all about heat generation. You can't push them too quickly, so heat will build up and then you will not have any grip, and it'll be like driving on ice already, as we are heading towards that sort of winter time anyway in the sport.
Only 3 minutes. Let's have a look at a replay here of Michael Hooper coming around the second corner here. See what happens side by side. Coming up for this, gets a slight tap and then just cause a cascading effect. It's always a treacherous move trying to go 2x2 going up through the snake. It's hard enough as it is in single file, but 2x2 puts a little bit of pressure, and we just saw there Michael Hooper just getting tagged from the back end there, and he's our current leader in that pro Anfield. And like you said, Dave, it's just so easy to be able to do that. As we look at Nicholas Gronstrom here coming down to the Degners, coming through, it's technical course. Oh, as we see cars strewed across position there. See a Lamborghini in the background, just in the non-ideal place, right on the racing line, and that's a little bit unfortunate there.
Yeah, it's just a spin in the middle of the two Degners. We're now looking at Jimmy Vark there in the, as we mentioned, the Audi, who is coming down. And does he get involved in this in the middle of Degner 1 and 2? Yeah, he's just trying to make his way around, but obviously he has to run off track to avoid the cars in front. But I'm not sure which Lamborghini that was, but it's certainly an avoidance thing you have to do in the middle of Degner 1 and 2. Two corners very difficult. If you don't get them pinpoint right, you will be spinning around at the bottom. But we now look at David Gill. This is the this was the David Gill who has moved across to the Lamborghini. This was him leading the AM class and actually spinning out in the middle on lap 1, and that's what caused the hassle. He's got his foot on the brake, but the car's just not stopping on the grass, and everyone manages to avoid him pretty well. But that is your pole position holder in the AM category.
Definitely is. Very tricky set of corners then, Degners, as we've seen there. You know, and unfortunately on the lap 1 where you've got all the cars quite close together, and you get that little incident, it just caused that cascading effects down again. That's why we try to give that 5-second gap between the classes, so at least there's a fighting chance. If the grid of around about 38 cars were all literally in a big long train, there would have been absolute chaos there. So but we're looking back at a replay here at Thomas Cope coming down into 130R. Is this a mistake from Thomas coming around this very treacherous corner? Let's have a look, see what happens. Oh.
Whoa.
Does he save it? Oh, a little kiss on the wall. That's an excellent bit of driving there from Thomas Cope. That could have easily been a race ender, but that has put him down now into 4th in class and sort of let Aaron Powell off the hook. He has got a decent lead of 4.2 seconds over Scott Mopes. You can just see him there in the background, who has Nikolai Frayne for company. So Thomas Cope will now be on a charge to try and get back up the order, but that's just so easily done around that corner, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, so easily done. And Thomas Cope did, I was making noises in the background there because basically we've seen huge accidents there. I think of Alan Manish just driving to the F1 grid when he was racing for Toyota, ending up having a huge tank slapper there. And normally you don't catch those back, but Tom managed to get it down to the Casio Triangle chicane and managed to save it from too much damage. I will admit though, he's probably glad it's a GT3 car, because if that was an MX-5, it'd probably be 10 minutes in the pits after my experience lately. Very sort of paper mache, I think we called it earlier in the weekend with the MX-5s, but GT3 is just that little bit stronger. As we're now looking at Steve Pearce, and Hendrik Hausen seems to have dropped back into the pack of the AM category. So I don't know whether it was an issue with timing, or maybe he's made a mistake off the start and redressed that later on. He was about 8 seconds clear according to the timing screen, so maybe there's just either a little discrepancy there, or he has redressed the situation. But we now look at Arius Yaumantis, the pro driver, who just seems to have that consistency to be up there, or just some bad luck, and he's always having to fight his way back through the field. And he's now just behind the newcomer Eric Rochev. There is drivers, well, there's mud flying up everywhere. I think that was from Thomas Cope when he tried to just about survive, but I'm not sure who that was off the track. I'm just trying to look at time screen.
I think that was one of the rookie drivers there coming from the 130. I'm expecting to see quite a few of the drivers doing a little bit of spin, but we're currently looking at Michael Cody here coming up through the S's. Gets slightly wrong, and that's what we're saying about, there's that fine line between being on too much throttle not being on enough, and that was a severe cast there from Michael of being too much throttle. Literally the back end started to slide out on him coming up through there. Really about throttle management coming up through that section of the track, and Arias Yamantis now trying to fight his way through the amateur field. I don't know if we saw what happened to him at the start of the race, or if you can try and dig out, Lewis, what happened to Arias on that opening lap for him to be down in 25th place.
Was he involved with no, because that was the AM category. That was Pro-Am, yeah. So Pro-Am,
Lewis will be able to
Lewis normally finds that out for us, but looking at the head of the field, Aaron Powell leads away from Scott Mokes, who's moved up into second place. Nikolai Frayne in third and Tom Cope in fourth. Then we go to the AM category, where Alex Scarrett finding that form over the last couple of rounds, followed by James Logston again up into the top three of the class. Will he stay there as the race goes on? Something just always seems to grab James at some point in the race, and it just doesn't quite go to plan. Patrick Thompson running third. These guys wanting to take advantage of Michael Hooper's poor opening lap, and Michael Hooper is now in the pit lane here at Suzuka, so a very early stop. That must be for repairs, because there's no way he would be pitting this early, because you cannot make the end of races. Yamantis comes through the bottom of the S's. Oh, there's a car rejoining. That is a Performance Link Porsche, and then the Performance Link Porsche runs into the back of him. The Arias rejoins as well, so I'm not sure which one that was.
Scott Mokes, that was Scott Mokes
coming
off the track there, coming back on the track, spooked Arias. Arias then went off and then collected. Scott hit the back of Arias coming up through there, and really put pay to his lap, and just the treachery of that opening lap coming up through the snake is just so hard to keep clean, and obviously making sure that you're still on track. So there's Arias now trying to fight his way back in P23, down 18 positions from where he started out there. But like you were saying, in the Pro-Ams, Alexander Scarrett has found some form in this Audi at the moment, so it's looking good for him. But it does have James Logden in that second place position, 6th overall in the class, right on his tail. You can see there 0.5 of a second behind him. Patrick Thompson at the moment could capitalize on the misfortunes of Michael Hooper. Michael Hooper hasn't really had a terrible round. Drivers do get to drop rounds, as we're just watching Nikolai Frayne making a passive move there on Scott Mokes coming around into turn number 1. Very easy. So that slipstream down that start-finish straight is quite strong at the moment, Dave.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's shown the bop is currently working between the cars, especially around Suzuka, because we have such a mix of cars fighting it out as we go along. Just looking, this is at James Logston, who I think this is a new livery for Team Bear Pope for the Japanese rounds. I think we were meant to see it last time, and it probably didn't come out because of the hassles we had with iRacing. But this is not the normal livery for Team Bear Pope, but nice to see a difference out there. Further back as well in that. Oh, and that is actually another Team Bear Pope car. That is.
That's Alexander Scarrett, isn't it?
Yes, no, Scarrett is still just ahead. It was Bob Humphrey.
Humphrey,
yeah, because no, sorry, this replay.
It was a Team Bear Pope. So,
but Alex is still on the timing screen. So, it was Jimmy Vark. There we go. Yeah, Jimmy Vark having his second adventure of the day. He could start writing a book about him at this rate. But it's just that Audi again, and that's what happens. You just turn in too early to Degner 1, and it sucks you onto that curb. And if you get on that curb, normally it drives you straight into the wall just behind Jimmy there. But Jimmy managed to get it to spin, so there's less damage, but it did damage his race position, and a safe rejoin by Jimmy there to keep it going. But here's James Logston, as we watched before, right up behind Alex Scarrett. And these two drivers wanted to really kick on in this second half of the season. We did mention last week was a bit of an issue in terms of iRacing. it hasn't been fully decided, but it will probably be added in just before Le Mans, possibly. We'll wait for 100% confirmation, but that seems to be the way at the moment, which means the season will go 1 week longer, which means that every driver will get to race Fuji later in the season. Ooh, sorry, the car Tom Bingham going very wide there. I thought it was going to suck him in, but this AM category, Pro-Am category battle, certainly seen some different names in there. James Logston still up there. We've got Christoph Otterholt, and here we are looking at Christopher Birchins, who has been doing a great job on his official Performance Link debut.
Yeah, we've got quite a few new drivers that joined us here. Should have been out in Fiji, but unfortunately, as we all saw, that was postponed by iracing. But Christopher Bjornes is certainly a new driver, and driving a very bright green there. Audi, and Audi seems to certainly have made a resurgence. We can see there with the top Alexander Squaret driving in that Audi is certainly up. But as Alexander Squaret had an issue, I can see on the timing tower, he is now down in 8th place. He is off here at Spoons again. So Alexander Squaret has had an issue and is drastically falling down that Pro-Am. Let's have a look back and see what happened. This is, I think that's Degner 2 here.
Yeah.
Coming up through Degner 2, it's clean there. Is it the hairpin? Coming up to the hairpin now, going around the right, hard on the brakes here, trying to hit that apex. Does he just slide it around? Yes, he does. Literally just gets it wrong. Still on track. Does he? Oh, then he gets a slight tap from a BM and then hits into the Porsche James Logdon, which loses his position.
And I think it's broke
has another spin. Yeah, I think he has, because he's coming down here into Spoons and he has another spin here. So slight little bit of error there going into the hairpin by Alex. Just literally getting offline and spinning out. So from a very strong start of the race, he is finding himself now down in P14th and has come in the pits for that fast repair. As we join back with Christian Otterholt. Not really seen a lot of Christian this season. Very quick driver in himself. Currently 4th in class at the moment, just behind Russ Fowler, who was 4th overall in class behind Casper in that very tight 3rd place onward battle in that Pro-Am division. But Patrick Thompson at the moment must be rubbing his hands together, currently fighting out. As I say that, James Logston has made a passing move and has managed to get back past Patrick Thompson for the lead in that Pro-Am division. So that fighting up the front with James Logdon and Patrick Thompson is sort of ever ensuing. Then there's a bit of a gap between himself and Russ Fowler there.
There's damage. That's crabbing. But I was just about to say, Patrick seemed to have a 2 or 3 second lead, and nobody wants to lead this Pro-Am race. We've had Alex have that spin and a little bit of damage, and this is Patrick Thompson in the BMW. I'm guessing he didn't have time for a livery because that's a standard BMW livery, and he just loses it going into Degner 2 and bumps against a wall, and the damage there straight away. The 2 Porsches go round, and you can already see it crabbing. And Patrick Thompson will have to crab round and use his fast repair. So that is a fast repair for Patrick Thompson used, and a fast repair for Michael Hooper already used, and they've got to pit again.
They certainly do. Obviously, there's only enough fuel for around about 5 minutes as we see Patrick just coming into the pits. What this really does do now is really opens up that Pro-Am fields. 2 of the main front runners, Patrick Thompson and Michael Hooper, having issues in the opening 20 minutes of this race. And James Logston has got a real good opportunity. Russ Fowler, who was up there in the point standing as well, to close in that gap on the front 2. And like you said at the start of the broadcast, Dave, it was only half time with them 2 drivers getting out front. Do have 2 drop rounds, so they do have them still in the bag, but you start using all of them drop rounds with poor scores earlier on, it really puts you under pressure. So this could really spice up that Pro-Am field at the moment. Looking further back at the Am field, we got Sander Ireland currently leading out that way with Thomas Asfag in P13th at the moment. Another newcomer, just around about 2 seconds behind Sander at the moment. Sander currently riding quite high in the AM, deciding not to change his car from that Porsche, so sticking with theirs. We look further back to Kevin Copeland, currently in P20th, had a little bit of damage on the front end of that Porsche.
Yeah, there was a little bit of damage there, which we will see whether that affects Kev as he goes along. But there's one thing that happened while we were racing. Obviously, that we were all in the Discord, and Casper Tunstad and it was Simeon Murderclef both popped in during the weekend, and they said this will all be about trying to finish and not crash. And I said, nah, you're all good enough, you know, you won't be on about that. And yet in the first 20 minutes we've had 2 of the top pro-ams, 3 of the top pro-ams off the track, because we had Alex Scuret as well. We've had a couple of pros off the track as well, and the only ones not having incidents we've seen is the rookies.
Say that because looking at the rookie standards at the moment, Matthew Gerard, who was leading out this race, is currently finding himself 4th in class. Lewis McKevey there has taken up the lead in P23 overall, but first in the rookie classes, managed to get a bit of a lead over the second place Paul Joseph Clist, who's having a little bit of a fight here with Victor Lind. So this is the closest battle for the AM, but Matthew Gerard is 3.8 seconds behind these two as Victor Lind looks up the inside here into Casio trying to, and tags the back. That was probably an optimistic move there from Victor, going into that, went very shallow into there, didn't take off a speed, and you just see Paul in the background there getting the thing. But that then promotes Matthew Gerard back to 2nd in class. So unfortunate incident there involving Paul and Victor going into the Casio triangle. Very common mistake coming in there, trying to take that inside line as we watch Lydia currently in P4 in the rookie class, just trying to get it around the track in that wonderfully pink Mercedes out there. But yeah, so there's incidents throughout the whole of this field, and like you said, Dave, this is one of them tracks that, you know, it's really hard to master, but once you do, it flows really nice. And one person who has mastered it at the moment is Aaron Powell, out in front by 7.2 seconds over Nikolai Frayne in 2nd place, Scott Mokes in 3rd. But what is interesting is Thomas Cope is now 6.8 seconds behind Scott Mokes in 4th place. He was only 3 seconds, so there may be some damage on Thomas Cope's Porsche here. So maybe just trying to eke out, although you would look at his lap timings and they're pretty quick at 158 flat, so really trying to push on now.
Yeah, really trying to push on and make his moves early on. Tom Stevens, we can see, who's returned to the series after missing a few rounds. He is in the pit lane. Touch and go whether that's early or not. That might be the first of our expected stops. If not, could be a touch early, and he might have to save a huge amount of fuel to get to the end as Scott really runs that curb in the middle of the 2 Degners. You can if you get it right, but it's really difficult. And Arias Diamantis, who we saw off on the opening lap, up to 15th already with all the chaos ensuing. But it is this battle for 2nd place we're concentrating on. Nikolai Frayne looking for that big result that Aaron Powell got last time. I think both Powells, Dean and Aaron, were on the podium last time we actually finished a race in terms of the pros. So this is Thomas Cope heading down towards Spoon Corner. Does he just get a little bit wide in Spoon? Is he on the grass there on entry? No, but just runs, yeah, just catches the curb and it just spins it round. It's well held there and he gets it going as soon as he can, but it's just lucky there wasn't a queue of cars coming round to try and stop him rejoining. But that has allowed Scott Mokes off the hook, and he can now apply the pressure to the Denmark driver Nikolai Frayne. But Aaron Powell is finding some ridiculous form just at the right time to maybe just start building a championship challenge, as we now look at Christopher Otterholt, who is right up behind Russ Fowler, who is now 2nd in the Pro-Am class. Performance Link Mercedes against the IGL Coatings Mercedes, and it's just so many drivers. We can see Tom Bingham having to fight Casper Tunstad behind, and this is a good run by Tom so far as well. You know, we may take the mick out of him a little bit, but Tom's had a tough start to the season and just needs that confidence building result, and being ahead of Casper, who's third in the championship, it's always going to help.
Definitely is. 24 minutes into an hour-long race here. There is a mandatory pit stop that these drivers will have to take during this race. We have seen an early pit stop by Tom Stevens. Is that going to be early? But I suppose this track is probably quite good on fuel, because you are not at full throttle for large parts of the circuit. You're very much feathering that throttle, and certainly if you're slipstreaming behind the car, you could probably save a lot of fuel. So Tom Stevens just there trying something different, just a little bit out of kilter with the rest of the field, and we'll see later on if that comes as a profit. But look at Arvin Breivik here coming down to the 130R. Is this another victim? Watch on the outside if that tyre, oh no, he lost it even before he got to that point. Oh, is that Patrick Thompson there? That the other car that was involved there?
That seems to be Patrick Thompson. We'll have to double check, but it looks like it is. And that will be the end of the day, possibly, for Patrick, because he will not have a fast repair to use. He is still, here we go, he's on the replay, but it's a very strange spin as well. You know, he just lost it in the middle of the corner. Normally you catch a curb or anything like that. Just, no, Patrick's not going to know where the cars are there. And it's just another one of them unlucky incidents for Patrick this season that just seem to be edging him slowly. You know, this was the race. He was leading. Michael Hooper had dropped further back as Tom Bingham now heads to the pits. He is definitely there for an early stop. Wanted to get out of that battle with Casper Tunstad right now, as Casper Tunstad sets a 59.1. That's a very good lap for him. His fastest lap of race now that Tom Bingham has moved aside and he's not in that battling fight. Sander Island now jumps up into the top 10. What a mixed up grid we have so far, but obviously pit stops will help. And here is Tom Stevens, the first of our pit stoppers. Let's see where he comes out in comparison to Tom Bingham, because those two were quite close on circuit. I think maybe a second or two apart, as Tom Bingham is now out onto track. So that has worked for Tom Bingham in the Performance Link Porsche, and Tom Stevens is going to have some work to do, because he's going to be roughly 8 seconds behind. So trying to get through that slower traffic just not worked for the Lamborghini driver.
That's the problem, isn't it? When you try and pit early, you're very much going to be enthralled in the battles between the AM and the rookies, which are a lot slower than probably the pace that they were running at before, and that's where you can lose a lot of time. And we see Tom there not quite paying off for him, getting caught up, as we saw he was behind Lewis McEvany, the rookie driver there, as we saw what Victor was probably trying to do a couple of laps earlier with Paul Joseph Cliss, but unfortunately didn't work off. So that's certainly how to do it coming into the Casio Triangle. We're currently watching Matt Strand, another one of our new drivers coming up through Dunlop here, starting to get on the power. We're down to Degner 1 now, a good onboard view here of how treacherous can be, literally clipping that curb, and then using all the curb on the exit plus some of the grass to come up. But there's a great way of doing it, and that's why we say when coming into Degner 1 and 2, it's probably not advisable to be going side by side into that corner, and same through the 130R. You know, we saw Patrick there, unfortunately, not being able to do absolutely anything, because that is the racing line, and unfortunately we saw the car in front literally right on that, so there was just nothing that anyone could do. But this has really blown open that Pro-Am field. James Logston, Christian Otto, Casper Tunstad, who's in 3rd place overall. If he can stay where he has, and if he's got a racing brain about him as well, he will make sure that he keeps that position, because his 2 rivals in front of him have had an absolute disaster start to this race, and this will certainly be one of their lowest scores and a drop round in the championship. So very vital for Casper Tungsten to make them points matter.
Yeah, it's crucial right now that Casper maybe looks again a podium as we're looking at this chaotic scene in the middle of a chicane, and that is Hendrickhausen just trying to make his way through. Kev Copeland heads into the pits, and it's Matt Strand having a look up the inside of Hendrickhausen going down into turn 1, and Alex Scarrett on the charge back through. But this is Hendrickhausen going down to 130R. Are we going to see a similar kind of thing? No, it's a driver running wide, but then we have into the chicane. I think he's just missed his braking point there, and then tried to join safely and not affect everybody else. And even though it's a slower way, it is a safer way for the drivers to rejoin, and that is the best way that you can rejoin rather than cutting across the chicane. But back out in front, it is still Aaron Powell who's leading from Nikolai Frayne, Scott Mokes, and the charging Thomas Cope, who is now only 4 seconds behind Scott Mokes. So he is now on the charge after that spin he had. And again, Casper Tunstad 59.0. He is on the charge in the Pro-Am category, and now moves ahead of Christoph Otterholt, who heads to pit lane with James Logston still leading the way by 11 seconds to Casper. So there's quite a gap there for Casper to jump up through. But if this pace works for him, he will be there, because you can see the pace there in front of you of Thomas Cope at 58.1. Yes, I'm saying that Casper's setting a really good lap with 59.0, but we have to think of his class as a whole, and I don't think it's anything to be sniffed at being 8/10 off one of the quickest drivers in the field.
Definitely is, and you can see the time there. The last 3 laps taking over a second out of Scott Mokes, so that's where that time has really been gained. And now Thomas can see the back end of Scott Mokes' car has slightly lost Nikolai Frayne, only slightly, round about 8/10 of a second. But Thomas Cope challenging back up. But these are the times that Thomas can make slight little mistakes. We saw him make a little mistake coming into Spoon on that real charge, but he's really got to try to make up the points. He's there in second place. Scott Mokes, the car in front of him, is currently leading the championship. Aaron Powell is not that far behind, so it's going to be interesting. But we're looking back at the Pro-Am field with Thomas Bingham having a little bit of a battle here with Christian Otterholt. That is 3rd overall in the Pro-Am division. It just shows how much it's just been shaken up with all the incidents we've had in this class at the moment, that these guys are fighting over 3rd in class. Christian Otto was fighting with Russ Fowler. You can just see Russ there behind Tom Bingham. So Tom's managed to jump Russ in the round of pit stops, because I believe that Russ has pitted. Yes, they have. So Russ is really lost out on there, lost 2 positions. He was in front of Christian Otterholt, but has now lost out to not only Christian but his teammate Tom Bingham there, and he's down 4 places from where he started. Just looking at the big gainers and big losers there, it looks like Eric Rossov in 13th, up 20 positions from where he started. The AM driver, has he had his pit?
No, I don't believe so yet.
No, so he still owes the pit stop, but up 20 positions for his very first race as he just on cue comes into the pit lane. So we've got quite a few in. So we've got Casper, Arish Mantas, David Gill, Stephen Pierce, Eric Rossen, and Daniel Slater, all in the pit lane at the moment, getting their pit stops done for this round. Currently 33 minutes into an hour-long race, and getting after the round of pit stops, Scott Mokes is your first place. That was Aaron. Has he gone? Aaron's gone into the pit.
Yeah, Aaron's pitted, and he's come out in 4th place.
Oh.
So that shows you the lead Aaron Powell had pulled out in the opening parts of this race. And he's come out in 4th place and looking very strong. But like you said before, Casper Tunstad, Christoph Otterholt and Tom Bingham all battling over, well, 2nd place in class, because James Logston doing a very good job there. Lydia Rosa taking the old Suzuka pit lane to come into the pits there, avoiding the chicane. I didn't even know you could actually still get down that, but there we go. But here is the battle for 2nd. Oh, that's Christoph Otterholt round, and that is going to allow Tom Bingham and Russ Fowler through, and Christoph will be ruining Luis Arai's great production skills to pick that up just as it happened. And I'm sure Lewis will tell us it's more luck than judgment, but we'll give it to him. A great catch there, just in the hairpin, just deep on the brakes, a bit too much speed. The rear end comes round, and you just cannot control it. But Sander Ireland, who was the lead AM category driver, is just pitting now, same as Thomas Asfog. They were pitting from 5th and 6th overall, as Nikolai Frame moves back up into 5th and 6th. It's 9 seconds off the clubhouse lead, shall we call it, because Scott Moakes, Kim-Andre Borkland and James Logston still owe us a pit stop. Gordon Haug also owes us a pit stop. Victor Lind also owes us a pit stop, looking at the timing screen. And Paul Joseph Kliss. So Paul Joseph Kliss will fall back towards the rear of the field after that. But Thomas Cope here just trying to fight his way back through, down in 22nd. Is there any reason that Thomas should be down in 22nd?
1:34. So Thomas has had a pit stop of 1:34. I wonder if he took tyres. He must have, or didn't unclip it, but because you can see a lot of the timers are around about between 20 and 25 seconds is the standard pit stop. Thomas Cope there taking a 1:34, so not quite sure what happened there, but we see another Lamborghini there.
David Gill.
David Gill not really ruined the change of cars there. Was in the Ferrari, changed to the Lamborghini, and has not had a great round after a great start to his thingy. But we look here, Scott Moakes, Kim-Andre Borkland, James Logston all in the pit lane. That will then give Aaron Powell the lead back in this race. Nikolai Frame should be able to get through as well, but you can see the gap there now. Aaron Powell 10 seconds ahead of Nikolai Frame. Currently out on track, so Aaron's really put the medal down here in that Lamborghini, just showing what it can do, as we do see James Logden changing tyres as well. So this tyre model and a couple of the drivers deciding to take tyres in an hour-long race, which is surprising.
Yeah, Scott Moakes only 1.6 seconds behind Aaron Powell as he's come out of the pits. So has there been... I don't see where Aaron's been held up, to be honest. He had a nice gap in front of him, and Scott Moakes has obviously gone 2, 3, maybe 4 laps longer than Aaron, but it's just obviously closed that gap down really. It's obviously stretched out as he's come out, but it's 2.3. Now that gap was 8 seconds, I think, before the pit stop. So yeah. Scott Moakes has well and truly left Nikolai Frame behind, who he was battling. And Nikolai now has to watch out for Kim-Andre Borkland, who's just behind. After the pit stops in the Pro-Am category, James Logston still leads 12 seconds clear of Casper Tunstad. Is this the day where James Logston finally gets that position which he deserves at the top of the podium? And it would make it a double American victory if Aaron Powell was able to convert his as well. Casper Tunstad moves up in second place from Russ Fowler, Otter Holt, and Tom Bingham has fallen down to 10th overall. Sander Ireland leads in AM. That is Tom. There's no rear wing on that Porsche.
Yeah, certainly looks like he's been involved in an incident coming up through the S-curves there, as no rear wing at all on that Porsche. Oh, there we go.
That
the back
was
end
not going to work.
Out of Degner, so that probably puts pay to Tom's chances of this. So watch out. Ooh. As we just see, let's have a look to see.
Oh, does he lose it at 130R and he doesn't actually know he's lost it?
I don't know. Let's have a look here. So as he's coming down,
bit of curb on the inside, hits a curb, round it goes, hits. Oh no! Oh, Russ, yeah, and back end into a wall. I'm not sure how he didn't see that front wing fly in front of him, but maybe he thought, I'll give it a go. But that has cleanly snapped off, and the low downforce drag coefficient on the Porsche, as you can already see in the chicane, doesn't work.
Sliding all over. But no, it's interesting to see a couple of the drivers, and obviously to go back to the front, obviously looking at the pit times, Aaron Powell was a 24.4 seconds, Scott Moakes was a 21.65. here as we're looking at Tom Bingham again. I think this is going to be another terrible mistake here around the 130.
No, he's made it. He's made it. So it'll just be whether he pits. No, let's see if he pits in a minute. Maybe it just feels all right now. He's got used to it, and you know, it might. You know, we know Tom. He likes to take a brave pill every now and again. And as we now look at Michael Hooper, now this is a driver who leads the Pro-Am category, was involved in an incident on the opening lap, and is now having to fight his way through the field. And bad news for people like Casper Tunstad is he has been able to fight through the field. He now sits 12th, just behind Alex Scarrett, our other former leader in the Pro-Am category. And we are just going to a replay of Nikolai Frayne as he comes up into Dunlop Curve. Does he just get caught out by the car in front? It's a bit tight there. And he goes down into Degner, and he just can't turn in because Matthew Gerard is there, the car being lapped. And that will allow Kim-Andre Borkland up into 3rd place.
Definitely will be, but obviously just looking at the lap times there, obviously Scott Mokes gained 3 seconds in the pit stops. Nikolai Frayne was 5 seconds slower than Scott Mokes, so that's where that gap has occurred. And Kim-Andre Borkland was 6 seconds quicker than Nikolai Frayne in the round of pit stops. So real differences in times in the pit stop windows between the pros, which is really shaking it up. Aaron Powell at the moment still stretching out that lead, going back up to 3.7 seconds. So this is certainly Aaron's track. Scott in a respectable, certainly 2nd place at the moment, and some very valuable points over his title rival Thomas Cope, as you can see there, down in P17th at the moment, with what was a very unusually long 1 minute 34 pit stop. So not sure what happened there to Thomas. Maybe didn't uncheck his tires at the start. So that seems to be or it could be speeding in the pit lane and he got a 40 second.
True,
he was pushing super hard, so I think that's probably more, 40 seconds plus another 30. That's round about the time as we watch Kim-Andre Borkland coming around there, and getting very squirrely coming out of Degner 2. But currently round in 4th place. Nikolai's managed to get back in front, so Kim in 4th overall. James Logston still leading out your Pro-Am field in 5th place overall, 5 seconds ahead of Casper Tunstad in 6th place. Russ Fowler in 3rd place overall in the Pro-Am field. Sander Ireland is currently leading out the AMs in 10th place overall, and has got a very sizable lead over Thomas Asfag in 13th place, who has then got a 3.7 seconds to Steve Pierce, who's currently 2nd in that AM field. So Sander Ireland should be gaining some valuable points here to try and stretch that lead in that AM class field. Looking further down then to the amateur class, we got Lewis McEvany in 20th position, currently leading out that class by a considerable margin over the 2nd place Victor Lind, who had an incident earlier on with the 3rd place driver Paul Joseph Clist. The gap is around about 7 seconds between Victor and Paul, but I'm pretty sure that maybe we will be looking at that one on our podcast on Tuesday night, which we go over all the incidents that the drivers protest during this round, and we try to get a few drivers in and just a general chit chat. But Matthew Gerard here going into the pits again. I believe this is his 3rd. This is his 3rd pit stop. Is it? 2nd pit stop of the day there from our producer going in, but not the best one for our 2nd place driver in the rookie class at the moment. So it's a drive-through, so hit that penalty limit. So the incident limit is 20 on this track, and then every 10. So every 10 more incidents that Matthew Gerard does consume, he will have to do another drive-through. So we haven't seen very many of them, Dave, in the series so far. So pretty much one of the first ones we've seen.
Yeah, very easy to pick him up on the outside of his circuit. As we also, I was just going to mention that. I see Lewis just knows exactly what we're thinking. Patrick Thompson still running. Obviously, just trying to get that car around to a finish, but according to the timing screen, 3 laps down. So if he's 3 laps down, that doesn't mean he'll score any points, and it will not help his championship. But he will know he wants to try and get that car to the end. He needs to learn everything he can about this BMW, ready for future races, and obviously the change of car that he's chosen. As we now look a bit further ahead, and Aaron Powell leads by 3.6 seconds over Scott Moak. Still, Nikolai Frame falling back. That battle for third still raging on with Kim Andre Borkland, who's now looking for the slipstream down into turn number 1. But I think there's a great drive there by Thomas Asperg, who has been running top 3 in the AM category throughout this race, sitting 13th at this moment in time. Not really, well, about 5 seconds behind Sander Island, who's been consistently quick in this championship. And I think a very good spoiler for the season ahead for the Send It Racing team. I think they'll be very happy with their debut so far, as you can now see Sander Island moving out of the way to let Alex Guret and Michael Hooper through, believing he picked up a slowdown in the chicane, so that's going to close that gap a little bit more by 2 seconds, it looks like, because Thomas is now only 3 seconds behind.
Definitely is, and great recovery drive here from Michael Hooper, as we saw at the beginning of the race, getting involved. We had to take his fast repair, currently up in P11, around about 7th in class at the moment, so we'll be scoring some valuable points. So the drop round will not be as significant as maybe as it will be for Patrick Thompson at the moment, but still some very valuable points overall for James Logden to close that gap. But looking at Casper Tunstall here on a replay. Oh, little tap there to Lydia coming around Degner 1. And unfortunately, Casper, and we were saying before, Casper really needed to have a decent round here to close in that gap. Currently 3rd in that Pro-Am standings at the moment, and really needed to have a great round. Currently 4th in class, so still ahead of Michael Hooper, but he could have had a lot more valuable points. But that has promoted our very own Russ Fowler to 2nd in class at the moment, a considerable margin behind James Logston. Tom Stevens there up 12 positions in P7. Is Tom, the Evo SR Black driver there. Not really been in a lot of rounds, so not really in the championship, but certainly when he does appear on track is a very quick driver in himself. But Kim Andre Portland there in 4th, having a real big tussle here with Nikolai Frame. These two are going hammer and tongue at it.
Yeah, these two drivers all after some good results to start the second half of the season, and a podium for either of them. I think actually 3rd or 4th would be a good result for either of them right now, but they want that podium position, and they have probably one of the closest battles on track. Thomas Cope also closing in on Arias Yaumantis, who's working his way through the AM field. But yeah, this is the closest battle, one of the most important battles as well, because it could just start the season, second half of the season, well for one of these drivers who can move forward throughout the rest of the season and maybe get to Le Mans with an outside chance of a championship. And then anything can happen with the few extra points you have for the 2-hour race. But the gap in the AM category has stayed the same at 3 seconds. We've already mentioned James Logston, 16 seconds clear of Russ Fowler, and Aaron Powell 3 seconds clear in the pro category. As we now look at Aaron Powell, we haven't seen much of him here today, but he has been on form for the last couple of rounds which we've done, and he's just switched on in this GT category. And could he just be the thorn in the side for these championship contenders and maybe just place himself in there, and we might see the American flag at the top of the championship before very long?
Yeah, we certainly will do. Aaron Powell's doing an exceptional job, but Scott Mokes did manage to close it down in the round of the pit stops, but Aaron has certainly got the speed out on track. Before we get into the last 10 minutes, just a big shout out to our sponsors, our title sponsor, Performance Links, who supplies hundreds of different automotive tuning brands focusing predominantly on the Japanese market. They offer a wide range of upgrades such as suspension, engine components, braking, and much more. They are also proud sponsors of multiple MX-5 race cars and specialise in the MX-5 Mark III for both fast road and track use. Contact them at sales@performancelink.direct for more information. And our other title sponsor, Green Future Technology, from our very own Russ Fowler, is a consulting specialist in IT sustainability and helping businesses transform the way they procure, operate and consume IT services. So whether you're an IT professional involved in IT procurement, work in sustainability, or just interested in what actions you can take to be more sustainable, they'll be able to help. See their webpage at www.greenfuturetech.com for more information. But back to the racing. Finally, in the last 10 minutes of this race, currently watching Thomas Cope in P15 onto the back of Arias Mantis' I think as we see. Well, is that Tom? Is that Tom again going off wide on the Dunlop?
Yeah, it's
I thought that was our very own Tom, but it might have been. Yeah, I think it was. I don't think it was Paul. But let's have a quick. Yeah, I don't know, but very much. I'm sure it was the Performance Link driver behind that was involved. But Thomas Cope managing to get past Arias Mantis at 14th. Not really where he wanted to be here tonight. But as we all know, the points in this are based on class, not finishing positions. So at the moment, he is currently P5 in that pro category, although Scott is in second. So we'll extend that lead at the top of the championship. But Scott maybe getting a little protest from that incident in the opening round between himself and Arias Mantis coming up through the S-bends, or the snakes, whichever way you want to call it. But currently back with this battle for third overall. Nikolai Frame currently at the moment being able to hold off Kim Andre Borkland, but Kim Andre Borkland is all over the back of that Mercedes driver, not letting him off the hook at all, and Kim doing an exceptional job. Considering we put him into the Pro-Ams at the start of the season, has held himself well in this pro category in the opening 6 rounds.
Yeah, he's done a great job so far, and just not had the luck in terms of the actual results. He was very quick in testing, and this is the fight for the podium, and he's hungry for it and wants to get that Porsche back up on there alongside Scott Moak's Porsche as well, making sure that Bob hasn't taken complete control of the Porsche just yet, as that is Nikolai running a little bit wide. Oh, and Kim Andre runs into the back of him, and well held there by Nikolai. And look what Kim's doing. Absolutely perfect by Kim Andre. Realised he made a mistake. I will sit behind you until you get going again, Nikolai. And luckily, Nikolai was skillful enough to keep it out the wall, and they lived to fight another day. And that was perfect sportsmanship there by Kim Andre Borkland.
Yeah, it definitely was, and that's what we come to see in this championship. You know, there is hard racing out on tracks. You know, slight little mistakes do happen, but if there's the opportunity to give the places back in this pro field, they certainly do. And that was a big round of applause there for Kim for realising he made a slight little mistake and didn't take the opportunity to make the passing move on Nikolai, gave it back up to him. So great move. But looking back now at Hendrik Harrison, is this another victim of the 130R club? Let's have a look. No, it's not. Or is it the Casio Triangle Club? Yes, it is. Goes out wide, gets a grass, manages to keep it. Not as spectacular as Thomas earlier on, but certainly managing to keep it. Is that the second time he's done that? I think it is, isn't it?
He ran a little bit deep, but he managed to keep it on the circuit last time. But this time he caught the grass, which is just going to draw him in. But this battle for third place is still well and truly on. Kim Andre not giving up on it one bit. And actually, Thomas Cope will still have half an eye on this battle, because just say something happens between these two and they actually have a collision or something, Thomas Cope, he is quite far behind, but if there's damage, etc., he could still end up on this podium. Here's Michael Hooper, who is still recovering from lap 1. He having a bit of a wiggle there as he's trying to get past Matthew Gerard, but he's up to 11th place, setting his sights on the purple Mercedes in front of him of Christoph Otterholt. This could be a good recovery drive by the German to get up into a good position as we now look at Steve Pearce, who is right behind Arias Yaumantis, pushing him along by the looks of it by the AM driver. And this is a driver who really needs to finish in the top 3 as we just go to replay. This is a battle for 3rd place in the pros. Are we going to see a bit more contact here between Kim Andre and Nikolai? Doesn't look like it there. He goes to the inside at Spoon. No. Oh, that was a bizarre one by Kim Andre, but it's let Nikolai Frayne off the hook.
Certainly has. I think he just went in a little bit too deep there. Thought I'm going to hit the back of Nikolai again. Didn't want to have a bit of deja vu and just decided to put that hankers on them brakes and unfortunately went a little bit wide. But as you're saying, Steve Pearce pushing along, the pro driver Arias not having the great, just tucking in behind the BMW driver, realizing, you know, Steve, although he's an AM, is certainly a lot quicker in that BMW than I am at the moment. He will not lose any points for that, will Arias? As we said, it's based on class position overall, so yielding the position very elegantly there was Arias Yaumantis. But Tom Stevens looking at the moment, I was just going to say there's a real big battle here for P2 in the Pro-Am between Russ Fowler, Tom Stevens and Casper Tungsten, all very close together, around about 0.6 of a second, just separating them all.
Sorry to jump in, Nikolai Frayne has fallen down to 5th in the table behind James Logston. He was up ahead of Kim Andre after that mistake by Kim Andre, and is he going to run wide at Dunlop? I think he is, and it just draws you in, and you get on the grass, and then you have to hold it off, and he's done very well to keep that out of the wall. And there goes James Logston past the Pro-Am leader, and that was very well done by Nikolai, because I've seen many a car just drift out there, catch the grass, and then it is a free ride towards the barrier. And we are now looking at Tom Stevens, who has moved up into 3rd in class, make that almost 4th, because Casper Tunstad trying to get that position off him. The 2 Lamborghinis side by side out of Spoon, and it will be the drag down towards the 130R corner. Tunstad and Stevens.
This could end in tears. These 2 cars are identical setups, side by side in there. I think Tom's going to have to yield slightly, and he does, to make the corner. So Casper really putting it on knife edge and giving Tom the option to say, well, we can try and go too wide if you want, or you can sort of back off, because I am certainly not backing off. And there's Casper Tunstad up to 3rd place in the Pro-Am field. Really needs to try and maximize his advantage here today with the pretty terrible rounds of Michael Hooper and Patrick Thompson at the moment, so really needs to capitalize on this and secure that place. Currently 3 seconds ahead to Russ Fowler up in front. I think that's going to be a stretch too far, considering we have around about 2.5 minutes left of this race. At the front, we've got Aaron Powell still commanding lead, 4.7 seconds over Scott Mokes. Kim Andre Bortland 21 seconds behind Scott Mokes. That shows us the pace certainly of Aaron Powell and Scott ahead. Nikolai Frayne sort of let Kim Andre Bortland. I think it was a bit of tit for tat there. Kim Andre Bortland gave him the advantage coming down into the Spoons, but the following lap, Nikolai Frayne gave the advantage back to Kim Andre Bortland coming through the Dunlop S's. But James Logston has had a relatively quiet race at the head of the Pro-Am field, just been getting on with the business really, and has had a commanding performance at the moment. But looking further back, we've got Casper Tunstad again, just trying to secure that 3rd place overall in that Pro-Am field, and really could do with them points, although it's only 1 point. Every point matters in the season into the closing stages, but certainly got to grips with that that Lamborghini change, but one driver who certainly hasn't is David Gill. I think he's just had one of them rounds to forget in that Lamborghini. You know, we saw him at the start, only in P18th overall, around about 7th classes. David Gill was heading out that field, but looking further back, Sander Island looks like he's going to secure that top spot in the AM. Does have Thomas Cope behind him. You can just see him coming over the hill there behind him, and then he has had a relatively good Thomas Asfag in 14th place. He's had a great first opening round. He's going to be chuffed to bits without the brand new driver there in 2nd place in the Anfield. Looking further back then, we have Lewis McEvely, who's still leading out that rookie class. Has lost a little bit of time to Victor Lind, a couple of positions lost, or advantage that he did have to Victor Lind, but still has a commanding lead in that rookie class overall. And in 3rd place, we have Paul Joseph Clist in the rookie class. So still relatively tight overall in that rookie division overall. And I think it's a little bit unfortunate. We did see that incident between Victor Lind and Paul Joseph Clist around about 20 minutes ago, coming into the Casio Triangle. But I think overall, Dave, it's been a really entertaining race, certainly for our viewers, to see all the actions and sort of all the permutations and how much we've changed over the classes out on track.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even realised it's coming up to a checkered flag, because Aaron Powell is coming round at some point towards the end of a lap. Here he is out of Casio Triangle, and Aaron Powell wins here in Suzuka to take the pro victory ahead of Scott Mokes, who will be very happy with 2nd overall. And then we have to wait 21 seconds. Top 21 on the lead lap. Now, thinking how big the grid is, that's quite a strong result by Powell and Mokes to get round to lap that many. Kim Andre Borkland, I think that's possibly his first podium of the season in the pros. He might have had one somewhere else, but I'm not 100% sure. Nikolai Frayne comes home in 4th, and James Logston finally wins in the Pro-Am category. He will be overjoyed with that. It's an American double in the top 2 classes here in the Performance Link Championship. Russ Fowler 2nd. Casper Tunstad fires himself into championship contention with 3rd. Tom Stevens on his return 4th. Alex Scarrett, the pole position holder, down in 5th. Michael Hooper 6th. He'll be looking to hopefully use that as a drop round ahead of Christoph Otterholt. Sander Ireland wins in the AM category ahead of debutant Thomas Asperg and Steve Pearce rounding out that podium. And then we look to the rookie category, where Lewis McLevely is going to come round and take a commanding win in the rookies.
Yeah, it certainly is. Currently 4th overall in that rookie position, so it's going to make it even tighter down in that rookie class at the moment. So a great win here for Lewis coming through. You can see Victor Lind's already gone through the checkerflag to take the 2nd place over Paul Joseph Clist in 3rd place, but I'm pretty sure that some protests may be put in after the race between them two. But Lewis McEvely had a relatively easy outings here. I think at the start he did say he wasn't getting to grips with this track. I think he just probably, like you said, Dave, just taking it nice and easy, stayed out of trouble as much as he can around this track. But some great battling out on track, and a big congratulations to Aaron Powell. Really showed his dominance here. Scott Mokes he's just forever the Mr. Consistent, getting another 2nd place ahead of his rivals there, Thomas Cope, who managed to get 5th overall in class, but certainly will be extending that lead at the top. But let's have a look at the race results. Aaron Powell there, your race winner here for round 7 of the Performance Link GT3 Cup at Suzuka. Scott Mokes in 2nd place. Kim Andre Borkland 3rd. Is, like you said, Dave, I think that is his first podium finish in that pro class and overall in the field. Nikolai Frayne in 4th. James Logston with a very commanding lead and a win there in the Pro-Am in 5th. Russ Fowler managing to pick up 2nd with a lot of the big names falling out of the wayside earlier on in this race. Casper Tunstad, like you said, a very vital 3rd place which will close down the lead of the two in front. Tom Stevens in 8th, Alexander Scaret after a strong opening half of the race ends in P9th. Michael Hooper managing to get his way back into P10th overall, around about 7th in class, with Christian Otto in 11th. Sander Island in 12th, Thomas Cope. Another one of them rounds probably to forget in P13. 5th overall in class, Thomas Asfag in 14th. Great first race for the Sendit Racing driver. Steve Pierce in 3rd overall in the AM class. Aris Yamantas, again, after that first lap incident, really struggled to gain his form back in P16. Gordon Hagen 17th, and David Gill rounding out your top 18.
Yeah, in 19th, we had Christopher Bertrand on his debut ahead of the rookie winner, Lewis McClevely. 21st was Daniel Slater, 22nd, Kev Copeland, 23rd, Victor Lind, 2nd in class for rookies. 24th was debutant Matt Strand, followed by Eric Rushev. Paul Joseph Clift in 26th, Hendrik Harrison, 27th, Michael Cody down in 28th. I think he started from the pit lane. And then we have Tom Bingham, who lost his rear wing after a really strong run for him. He would be disappointed with that. Jimmy Vark had numerous trips around the Suzuka circuit, not quite on the racing line. Lydia Rosa just beats Matthew Gerard in terms of the rookie battle there for 4th in class, so that could be crucial to the championship. And then we have the drivers who will be ruining their day with a retirement. Patrick Thompson, massive for the Pro-Am category. Orvid Bredvik, Nicholas Gromstone, Simeon Maldeclef we didn't see much of, Bob Humphrey, and I don't think Nigel Stock actually took the start of the race. But yeah, Patrick Thompson, the one that really stands out there.
Certainly does, but we've got quite a few drivers standing by. But let's have a word with the Pro-Am driver of James Logden. James, welcome to the commentary box, mate. What a race. I mean, it was on the cards for the first 6 rounds. You couldn't buy a little bit of luck in the opening 6 rounds, but it certainly seems to be coming together a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Today really worked out for me for sure. Part of my decision process going into the race was just, with the new setups and everything like that. Through practice, I felt really loose going through most of the track. So I just decided to take it careful, try not to wreck anywhere. And after that, everything just kind of fell into place for me this time.
It certainly did. I mean, obviously the big names around you, certainly in the Pro-Am division, Michael Hooper, Patrick Thompson, all came under a lot of pressure and had a few incidents and sort of left you out on your own. I mean, how did the start of the race go from you to where you were, like around the midpoint, where you had a bit of a cushion?
Yeah, so that start seemed pretty chaotic. Fortunately, I was 2nd in class there, so I got started in front of everything. But I know my teammates got caught up in a little bit of that. So I was able to just dive in behind Alexander. I knew he had a little bit of pace on me, so I was hoping to just settle in behind him for the majority of the race. See how that would work out for me. And I guess some point in the first fuel stint, I forget exactly how far into the race, he unfortunately spun through that hairpin. And from there, basically, I just continued with my consistency and not making accidents. And then everybody behind me essentially had more incidents and things like that just gave me that gap by the end of the race.
I mean, this is probably one of them tracks, like you're saying, is trying to be as consistent as you want. A very hard track to overtake and very easy to get wrong. We're looking at your car on screen, and it very much looks like you haven't got a scratch on that Porsche. But one of the other questions I want to ask is, obviously with the brand new iRacing setup with the tyre models, just take us through how the tyres felt for you through that race, and were you at any stage leading up to this race tempted to change cars?
So the temptation to change cars didn't really come into it. I'm a huge fan of the Porsche, and I'm willing to kind of figure out how to make it work for me no matter what. So definitely decided to stick with it. The tire changes were definitely, I think, a bit surprising. So I ended up actually taking tires in the pit stop just because I wasn't confident that I would have enough tires by the end of the race to continue. And especially, I mean, I still spun in 130R near the end. Fortunately, it didn't ruin the race for me, but I was worried more of that would happen if I didn't swap out tires. So fortunately, I had that buffer, and with the new changes, so you swap tires while refueling, it ended up actually working out really nicely.
Definitely was. I mean, next round we go to your back garden, Daytona, another night race. How are you looking forward to that one?
Absolutely love Daytona, so I think I'm going to have a really good time there. I know the Porsche isn't quite the strongest shower on there just because of the long straights and everything it has going on with the oval, but I spend a lot of time there just for preparing for endurance races and stuff like that, so I'm really excited for it, and I love a good night race.
I mean, congratulations on what could be the season changer for you, James, and catapulting you back up to the fight for this Pro-Am Championship. And good luck, and look forward to seeing you out in Daytona next week. Before we let you go, James, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
First, yeah, thanks for that. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season. And then for a shout out, it's just my team, Team Bear Pope, has been super supportive of me just learning how to play the game, get into sim racing. I did that about 2 years ago, and I've learned so much just thanks to that team. So I want to thank them.
Thank you very much, James, and congratulations on your very first race win.
All right, thank you.
So there was James there, first place in the Pro-Am divisions. And Dave, who would you like to have a chat with?
I think as we haven't got the winner of the pro category, we'll have to go with our championship leader, Scott Mokes. So Scott, not the win that you were probably hoping for, but Aaron just had too much pace today, I think.
Yeah, that Lambo's found some pace after the new update for sure. Yeah, real tough. The cold tires on the new model is extremely difficult. Starting the race when you've got side by side with people, if you're late into a corner, you've really put the car under too much stress on them cold tires, and that's why I ended up going across the grass on lap 1.
Yeah, we caught a glimpse of that one. Do you think anything's gonna come of that in terms of a protest or anything? We only caught the end of it, so
I'm not sure. So I was a bit spooked that I'd came up the inside, and I thought I'd leave a car width, and then it just threw me. Went to save the car and had to take to the grass. And the new grass update, you've got no chance of controlling the car whatsoever. Whether on brakes, off brakes, not on throttle, you are just a passenger. And then it's the same again. I think Arias then went on the grass to avoid me, and then had the same exciting trip across the fast grass and back on in front. So I'm not sure, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, it's certainly you've had a good first 6 rounds. This round's gone well for you. Thomas Cope didn't have the best of rounds, which helped you out as well. So we head to Daytona next time in the dark. Is there anything particularly you'd like, you expected from that? And also, with you being in the Porsche still, was that ever a decision you wanted to change with the free choice coming in?
It did cross my mind changing car, but I do have a soft spot for any Porsche, so I just stuck with it and tried to control the beast yet again. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next race in the dark. That should be a lot of fun, and the Porsche really does suit the track, so we should see the Porsches be a bit more performance in them.
Well, you'll be heading there as the Pro Championship leader, so congratulations on your second place today. And before we let you go, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to Performance Link and yourself and Andy for commentating on this one. And obviously Lewis, our camera guy, amazing work behind the scenes happens doing that. And yeah, also thanks to the teammates, Tom and Russ. And yes, to you, David, for yesterday. I take my hat off to you, sir.
Thanks. I also want to thank you and the future wife for the support you gave me throughout that, and hopefully you'll be able to continue your good run throughout the season.
Fingers crossed. Thank you.
That was Scott Mokes, our Pro Championship leader. And Andy, who have you got?
I've got the AM winner, Lewis McKevney, here in the box with us. Lewis, welcome to the box. Fourth at the start of this meeting in the rookie class, but certainly would have done yourself a lot of favours here getting that win here tonight. How was it for you, and how has the new model changes affected your racing?
Well, first of all, the race, It was a very eventful. Well, it looked like an eventful race. A bit boring for me because I got stuck up with people I shouldn't be. I'm quite happy I'm outpacing my class at the moment, but it's a bit boring for me because I don't want to fight and ruin other people's races. So there's that. And then the tire model, I don't know. I've not done enough practice on it to see if I like it or not. Right now, I feel like it's alright, just a lot more understeer, especially in the Porsche. But I like it so far. I'm liking it. I think I feel faster with the new tyre models and all the new models.
Definitely. I mean, obviously you came into the season after round 2, so your drop scores are pretty much 0. Does that put any added pressure on yourself going into this rookie championship? I mean, certainly at the moment it doesn't seem to be pressuring you, but is that in the back of your mind saying, I've got to finish well or else that could put me out of the championship? Or have I just opened up a big can of worms for you?
It means I can't take as much risks, especially because say I'm in P2 with 2 laps to go, and then I've just got up to P1, I might not take the risk trying to overtake in case we crash out, because obviously they've done more races than me. I've missed 3 races, the first 2 races, and then I missed last round. So there's definitely a sort of having to accept some stuff. But right now I feel like I've been doing well, taking the risks that I feel like I can take, and then leaving the ones I don't want to take. So it's just about balancing that.
Definitely is. I mean, we've got Daytona out next week, the second of our night races. How are you looking forward to that one?
I've actually never raced it. I've never raced the road version of it. So it'll be exciting to learn. Like Suzuka today, I just bought the track half an hour before the session started, so I feel like I'll be quite adaptable learning it. I feel like I'll get up to speed quite quickly. Hopefully get back to back.
Yeah, I think you might be at a bit of a disadvantage because I think Daytona is probably one of the tracks that the majority of iRacers have done a 24 hours, so have got plenty of practice. But you know, saying that, you only just bought this one half an hour before this race, and you pretty much dominated that field. Probably from midway in this race, so I never say never. And obviously being 4th in that championship, that rookie championship, although there's only about 3 or 4 of you, it's actually a really competitive field.
Yeah, especially I think sorry, Matthew never made that mistake near the start. I think we would have been fighting a lot more. We would have slowed each other down. It would have been a tighter fight. But obviously he just made a wee mistake. I think he just got on the curb, spun, and then got stuck behind a few other drivers. So I think I got really lucky tonight. 100%, I got really lucky.
Yeah, definitely just losing you a little bit there, Lewis. But congratulations on your race win. Looking forward to seeing you in Daytona. And again, you know, seeing if you can do and replicate what you did here tonight, literally buy the track and win that rookie class. So congratulations on your rookie win. And congratulations on probably moving up into it and making that rookie field extremely tight. So thanks, mate.
I'll see you later.
So there was Lewis there, obviously winning the rookie class overall. And yeah, it's interesting. And who would you like to chat to, Dave?
I think we'll have to go for Sander Ireland, our AM category winner. Sander, the form keeps on coming for you at the moment.
Yeah, I had a good race today.
Obviously, we've got the changes in the BOP and the tyre model. How did you find, well, first off, did you have any thoughts about changing your car, and if so, what to? And secondly, how did you cope with especially the colder tyres at the start of the race?
I was a bit worried to start with, testing the new cars at Fuji. I just tested every car except the Ford and the Audi, I think. And I came to a conclusion that either the Porsche or the Lamborghini would be a good choice for me. And now this weekend I haven't had a lot of time to test the Lamborghini a lot, so I just stick to the Porsche, and it turned out well. And the cold tires, it's it's drivable, I think, but hard.
Yeah, I mean, I said in the commentary, even on the MX-5, it took laps, and that's a really hard compound, and obviously you got race compound on these cars, but you seem to have quite a standard race. Once you hit the front, you pulled out a bit of a gap. You had, trying to think who was behind you now.
Thomas Aspug.
Oh yeah, Thomas right behind you. Yeah, and being new to the series, was it ever the thought of going, well, Thomas isn't in the championship, I need to score points here, or was it all out for the win?
It was a gap. I just tried to manage, and we had a very even pace. So it kind of just stayed the same-ish the whole race. Both pushing very hard though.
And do you think these newer drivers in the AM category could cause a bit of a stir as the season goes on?
Yeah, I don't think they can win the championship, but they can definitely do something like what do you say? Just like
Take points off each other.
Points of each other, yeah.
But yeah, another great drive by you, Sander, and certainly extend your championship lead. So before we let you go, is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to?
I would like to give a shout out to Thomas Aspug for pushing me through this race.
Thanks, and we will see you at Daytona next week.
Thank you.
That was your AM winner, Sander Ireland, who extends his championship lead. And if you notice, 3 winners in the classes out of the 4 did not change their car.
That's going to have something to say about, obviously, consistency. Obviously, the new drivers changing the car have really got to get used to not only the new tyre model, but also the new car setup. But Aaron Powell certainly drove that Lamborghini to perfection in this race. Did close down after the round of pit stops, but still managed to pull away from Scott overall. Kim Andre Bortland, a great race for him to get his first podium overall in that pro category after an excellent fight between himself and Nikolai Frayne. And Thomas, again, just falling foul a little bit. I was going to get him in to see what happened in that pit stop, but I'll find out offline to rather than embarrass the poor guy. He's probably not enjoying the round. But I mean, that is an excellent round here in Suzuka for round 7 of the Performance Link GT3 Cup. We go to Daytona next week for our second of the night races. Very well lit track at Daytona, so it probably feel like a day track, and a lot of the drivers will have a lot of experience driving around Daytona at dark, apart from Lewis, as we heard there, who hasn't really got the track himself. But a big thank you to our sponsors, Performance Link, Green Future Technology, and Thomas Cope Simography, TC Simography, who are our main sponsors for this championship. My name's been Andy Thompson. I've had Dave Whitehouse, who is probably really looking forward to going to bed now after only having 2 hours sleep in 48 hours. Lewis Aurora, as always, doing an excellent job in the production box. But until next week, good night, and look forward to seeing you again. Good night.